Welcome to another episode of Inner Mastery. This is a book club edition, so we are talking about Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. We're currently kicking off chapter 7, and I will tell you this, the conversation is one of the best that we've had in a book club. There's a single question that when you start to ask and get to the answer of, will set you free in life. Will allow for everything to be joyous, for you to enjoy life and find happiness in every moment, no matter what's going on. And that question is what we discussed today in book club. And I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions yourself, please, of course, put it in the comments. I'm here behind the scenes, and I'm going to let you get to it. Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. Today is Monday, so it's book club day, and we are in the midst of reading Eckhart Tolle and New Earth. We are on chapter 7, which maybe is a little bit past halfway. I swear, this book keeps getting better and better and better as we read it. He sort of is tying in and doing a beautiful weave into all the concepts that he talked about before. But truly, these things stand alone. So if you're just coming across this for the first time, listen in. I think this will be beneficial to hear. You know, I took a ton of notes as I keep doing with this book. It's like usually I just like put a note on the side to discuss with you guys, but this one is just, it's so thorough. It's so in depth. So if you are joining me live, let me know when you get here. Hey, Charlotte. If you're joining me on the replay, let me know that you're watching the replay. It's always nice to know who is engaged with this, and always share this, right? Share this to your page. Let other people hear these conversations. They are profound. I think it's really our soul's work, what we're talking about. So let's dive in. Last week I ran out of time. So let's get the most out of our 30 minutes together. So again, we are on chapter 7. We're talking about finding who you truly are. And, you know, I think it's interesting. Hey, Karen, good to see you. There's an interesting question he posed at the beginning of this that I want to pose to all of you. So he says, if you could know the future, hey, Tina, if you could know the future and be able to know, therefore, what the best choice always is for you in this particular moment, would you want to know it? And do you think it would make you happier? So put a 1 if yes, a 2 if no. So I'll read the question again. 1 yes, 2 no. If you could know the future and therefore know what best choice always to make in every given moment, would you want to? And do you think it would make you happier? So 1, if yes, you would want to know. 2, if no, you don't think you'd want to know. Okay, I see a 2. I see a no in here. It's kind of interesting. Like, it's sort of enticing to go, well, yeah, I would like to be able to like talk to an oracle and just know what I need to do in every given moment and have clear guidance. And it seems like that would make things a lot easier. But the truth is, you guys read this chapter, so everyone's saying no, right? The truth is, it's not going to make you happier because it doesn't actually solve any problems for you. You know, we think it might make life easier to know the future and to know what best thing to do and blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't actually make you happier. And, you know, it was interesting. I just watched an interview, and I'm going to forget the name of the person, but he was being interviewed. He used to work at Facebook, and then he's from Sri Lanka, grew up in Canada, came to the United States to work in Silicon Valley, was part of Facebook when it first went crazy, and then has worked on other things. So by the age of 30, this guy had tons and tons and tons and tons of money, or like, you know, billions, like just like set. And it was really interesting because during this interview, what I thought was going to be like a business discussion turned into really this guy talking about what for him was like a spiritual awakening, to realizing like, I have everything at the age of 30, was married, had kids, you know, couldn't want for nothing. And he was like, something wasn't right. Like, I wasn't happy. And all of these things that everyone had, society, everyone had always said would like bring you joy, it was so fleeting. Like, I had them and I still wasn't happy. And it caused him to kind of reflect on, well, what really matters in life? And it's interesting because in this book, what he says, if you go to page 186, he says, really, the only thing that matters, first and foremost, in order to have happiness, in order to live a good life, is to ask one particular question. And who remembers what that question was? It's like I'm testing you today. Did you do your homework? Did you read? But it's important, right? The question is, who am I? Who am I? And that question is the underlying question of everything. And once you understand the answer to that question, that is what then opens up life to you, where you can be happy always. When you truly know yourself, it opens you up to happiness always, no matter the circumstances, no matter what happens, no matter what's going on in your life. When you know that truth, it's like everything else is resolved. It's the truth that sets you free. So, how would you answer that? I think typically if someone asks you this question, well, who are you? Right? I've just met you. Who are you? What do we start telling people? Oh, I'm Danielle, right? I say my name. I'm Danielle, We might say our occupation, right? We might say that we're a parent, or, I have a dog, or whatever. You start to describe things about you. All right, but that's not actually you. That is the ego, right? The ego is the name, is the occupation, is your history, is whatever you identify with as being, whatever role you're playing, right? Mom, coach, trainer, teacher, whatever. Some people are smart enough to say, or clever enough, right? They'll say, oh, well, I'm spirit having a human experience. And it's like, okay, but that's also an idea. It's like one thing to say that as a conceptual idea. It's another thing to live it, to know it in your being, that you are more than just this body, that you are more than just these thoughts. You are more than all of that. And that requires a level that many have not obtained, right? It requires you to lose your mind and be in your being. And, my teacher, one of my spiritual teachers, he always says, my awakening happened in the 70s for him, where he was doing yoga postures, and all of a sudden he was doing the postures, but he wasn't doing it. His body was spontaneously moving into the different postures. Prana, energy, the life force, the divine within you, was moving the body for him. And he said, up to that point, I had studied scriptures. I had, on a conceptual, mental level, understood this concept of, I'm spirit having a human experience. But he said, I didn't actually get it. And I couldn't unknow it once this experience happened. And interestingly for him, there were other people in the room when it happened. And when it stopped, they all looked at him and said, you didn't just do that. That wasn't you. And he said, no. It was the spirit within me. It was my true self was actually moving this body without the mind doing it. And if you've ever had an experience like that, you can't unknow it. It's exactly what happened to me when I was in Iceland. When I went and did a yoga therapy training, in the session, prana took over. The spirit force within took over. And for 45 minutes, it was moving my body and doing things and clearing things. And I wasn't. My mind was over here. And things were happening. I came back from that, and it was hard to integrate back into life, because I was like, I can't unknow the truth of all of this. Like, I've experienced what they're talking about, and once you know it in your being, you live from that space. And you just realize there's something much bigger than any concept of self that I have, or any kind of thing that's going on in this world. Like, there's something much bigger behind it all and at play. And that's what he's getting at. It's like you need to actually know yourself. So how do you start to get to know your true self, right? This is what's interesting. He talks about, I think I jumped here. I'm on page 187. He says, look, what upsets you and disturbs you? So he says, let me just kind of get into it. What your actions and reactions reveal are very important and serious. If small things have the power to disturb you, then who you think you are is actually that, small. That will be your unconscious belief. What are the small things? Ultimately, all things are small because all things are transient. This is an important point we'll come back to. But things like this, right? You might say, oh, I'm spirit having a human experience. But then you get a phone call and the stock market has collapsed. Your deal fell through, right? Your car's been stolen. Your mother-in-law is about to arrive. Your trip has been canceled. Your contract has been broken. Your partner has just left you. There's a demand from someone for more money. People are blaming you. They're saying it's your fault for this thing. Suddenly, there's a surge of anger. There's a surge of anxiety. There's a harshness in your voice. I can't take this anymore. Why is this happening to me? Right? All of a sudden, you've lost being the spirit, having the human experience. You've gotten so pulled into the human experience. And something is obviously much more important to you now than the inner peace that was so important a moment ago, that you said was all you wanted. If it's only a conceptual idea, then life will pull you back into it, right? You have to know yourself on a deeper level. And so what he's saying is, find the things that are pulling you away from inner peace. Find the things that are disturbing you. Find the things that are causing you anxiety. And that will start to show you the pieces of you that you believe to be true that aren't, so you can start to work on them. Does that make sense? It's like that thing is in you, making you believe that, oh, money is the most important thing ever. So when something happens to the money, you freak out, right? Well, that's something that's not truth living inside of you. That's some fear from your past or something that has happened, and I have this knot, because to me it's like an energy knot in the body. And what happens? Well, once you shine the light of awareness on it, it's kind of like turning on the lights in a dark room. Like, you don't have to fight it. Light doesn't fight darkness. It just exists, and so therefore darkness cannot. And once you realize the truth of who you are, all these little things, they are little, money coming, money going, right? You start to realize there's something bigger than all of this. And there's a divine order to it all, right? There's a divine order there. Hey, Miriam. Good to see you here. All right, so just ask yourself, how are you responding to life? What are the things that are setting you off? Who are the people that are setting you off? What are they doing? And it's starting to reveal to you these things inside of you that you're identifying with that are not actually you. All right, because if something is greater than your inner peace, it means that you don't actually realize the truth of who you are. All right, those little things that you're finding so important, who are they important to? They're important to your ego. They're important to the thing that is not actually you. They're important to the thing that has hijacked you, that has created an illusion into making you believe that all of this is important, that it really matters. It doesn't. All right, you have to seek truth. On page 188, I highlighted a whole lot. This was so good. If peace is really what you want, then you will choose peace. If peace mattered to you more than anything else, and if you truly knew yourself to be spirit rather than this little me, the ego, you would remain non-reactive and absolutely alert when confronted with challenging people or situations. You would immediately accept the situation. That's everything. You would immediately accept the situation and thus become one with it rather than separate yourself from it. Then, out of your alertness would come a response. Who you are, consciousness, right actions, right words, if you're in the present moment, will come through you. It doesn't have to come from the mind. It comes from consciousness. Who you are, consciousness, not who you think you are, that small little me, the ego, would be responding. It would be powerful and effective and would have no person or situation, it would make no person or situation into an enemy. That's key. That's how you can be. That's how enlightened beings are, right? And it's difficult to get there, yes, but it's like, that's where we're all trying to go. It's going to allow for life for you to be happy all the time. Once you can accept all that's happening, realize that everything is transient. Everything comes and goes, including this body that we have right now. All right, we watch the thing age over time. It's coming and it's going, but there is a witness behind the whole experience that is always there, omnipresent, right? And we forget it. It's so easy to forget about the witness, right? We go outside at night and we look at the night sky and we say, oh, look at the stars, right? But the only reason you can see the stars is because of the backdrop, because of the black, dark sky, right? That's always there. That's the thing that's you. It's always there, all right? So start to see, how do you react to people? How do you react to situations, especially when challenges arise? All right, this is the best indicator of how deeply you know yourself. There's a saying that I've seen out there before, like when something happens and your cup of coffee gets bumped, what spills out is different for everybody. Just look at the pandemic, right? Same external pressure put on all of us, right? Things out of our control, all these crazy things, the government doing this, saying that, blah, 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 whatever. All of us were impacted by that. And So our coffee cup was bumped and coffee spilled for everybody. But how did it spill? Some people had a really hard time, and they're still having a hard time, right? There's a lot of mental illness in this country because of that, right? But other people were totally fine. I was fine during the whole thing because I had been through something similar before, and I had realized none of this external stuff matters. This is here right now. Eventually it's going to go. Okay. And I remember calling my sister during that time and saying, the whole world is experiencing now what I did after my brain injury, where I wasn't allowed to go outside. I couldn't interact with people. I was stuck in the house and I wasn't feeling good. And I said, at least everybody's, feeling good. But this is what we're talking about. It's like, look, if the limited you perceives faults in others, this is important. So first of all, external world, see what's you're getting bothered by. And then when your ego is getting triggered by a certain person, look at it. Don't get into the reaction. Look at, why am I being triggered? Like, what am I perceiving in that person? This is what's interesting. If the limited you perceives faults in others, all right, we start to say that that's them, right? We give them an identity. It's our ego seeing a piece of their ego. And what's interesting is that it strengthens the ego inside of yourself. And so if you're not seeing everyone else as a spiritual being, having a human experience, going through all the ups and downs and, getting taken over by the ego and doing things unconsciously, if you're taking it personally, then you're not seeing them for who they truly are. You're seeing the ego in them. And what does that actually do? It strengthens the ego in you. So how do you get around that? You see the divine in everyone. That's what you do. You see straight through it. You don't look at the ego. You see straight through it. And you have empathy because you're like, yeah, that thing used to take over my mind too. And I used to do a lot of unconscious things and say a lot of mean things and do things that didn't make sense. But now I'm more conscious. And so you can have the ability to open your heart and receive them without getting your ego involved. High five me. Put a 5 in the chat. Is this making sense? Okay, this is deep stuff, right? This book is deep. But it's so good. So he says, look through the ego, not at the ego. That is something that is so key. If there was one line from this that I loved, it was like, yeah, look through the ego, not at the ego. You want to look through to see the divine in each person, to see the light inside of each person, to see the spirit, the witness, the sky that's there, no matter what freaking hurricane or tornado is moving through these people. Don't take it seriously. Don't get triggered by it. See what's there behind it. Okay? All right. Soon you'll realize the world is a mirror. And this is the best part. Polly, the book is Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. And we are, every Monday at noon, we go through it. And on my Instagram, you'll see all the past ones. But we're on chapter 7 right now. So, soon you'll realize the world is a mirror. What you react to in the other is actually in you. And you start to see what you thought others were doing is actually what you were doing. It's pretty wild. It takes a lot of self-responsibility and being humbled and going, oh, I think you're controlling me, but really I'm the one trying to control. Oh, oops. Right? Like little things like this, you start to see it for what it is. What you're seeing in other people is actually, there is a counterpart inside of you that is active, that is actually the thing that is being seen. It's wild. And once you know, let's see, what did I write here? Once you know, okay. Once you know that you're not your ego, what he said was, once you know that you're not your ego, it doesn't mean that you know your true self. It just means now you've gotten the biggest obstacle that's in the way to knowing your true self. You've gotten that out of the way, or at least you started to recognize when the ego takes over, when these unconscious patterns take over, and you start to not get tricked by them anymore, right? You start to go, oh, there's that thing again, right? And you shine the light of awareness on it, and it will resolve itself. But he says just because you're able to do that does not mean that you truly know yourself yet. All right? Any questions with this? Yeah, good to see you too. It's a very good book. Very, very good book. All right, so the next bit he talked about was abundance. And again, I think this was an interesting point that because at first I was like, why is he throwing this in here? But it's like the things that you identify with internally reflect externally. And a lot of people identify with lack. And that is why a lot of people, they perceive lack, they feel lack, they experience lack. And the truth is, it is because the lack is within them. All right. And he said basically, who you think you are is intimately connected with how you see yourself being treated by others. So I'm just going to go back to kind of talk about this real quick. He says, I don't get any respect, attention, recognition, acknowledgement. I'm being taken for granted. When people are kind, they have some hidden motive. Others want to manipulate me, to take advantage of me. Nobody loves me. He says, when you start to perceive and interact with the world in that way, and that feels true to you, and you're like, no, there's evidence. Like, I can point to the evidence that no one ever listens to me, right? I can point to the evidence. What he's saying is, that's your ego. That's the little you inside of you. Why do you need the acknowledgement? Why do you need any of that? You don't. You absolutely do not. You are the divine made manifest. You don't need any of that. Your ego needs it, for sure, because that's how it stays alive. But you don't need it. That's the little you talking, the needy you talking. All right? It's not getting its needs met, so it's really upset. You don't need any needs met from the external world. Once you know yourself, and you know that, hey, you are the divine made manifest, and you are able to access the divine, what more could you possibly want or need than that divinity? Like, that's it. You know? But our thoughts like this, they create a lot of dysfunction, and they create a lot of illusions in our life about problems that don't actually exist if you just realize that your ego has the problem and you're not your ego. And so once you realize that, it's like the illusion is gone. It's like trying to fight a burglar in your house, calling the cops, shooting at it, everything, only to realize there is no burglar. You have been fighting an illusion, and you'll never win. Right? You can call the police, you can shoot the gun, you can do everything to get this burglar, but if there isn't actually one, you'll never win that battle. It's the same with your mind. Your mind is going to tell you it needs all these things from the external world, all these people should be doing this, that, or the other thing, it should be this way, it could be that way, blah, blah, blah. It's going to tell you all these things, and the truth of the matter is, even if all those things lined up, you still wouldn't be okay, because then all of a sudden it would say you need something else. And the truth is, that's an illusion. It's got you running down, chasing after things that you're never, it's like what that guy said in this interview. He was like, I was chasing after stuff, I was getting it, and then it was like spontaneously, this container got bigger, and all of a sudden I need more things, then I fill that container up, and then all of a sudden it got bigger, and then I needed more things. And he said, I realized one day, like, this isn't it. And the truth of the matter is, it's to realize, I'm the container. The contents are filling it, and they're coming and they're going, but I'm the sky, I'm the thing behind it. That's what everything is. So, all right, what I was saying about lack is on page 190. He says, if the thought of lack, whether it be money, recognition, or love, has become part of who you think you are, you will always experience lack. Rather than acknowledge the good that is already in your life, all you see is lack. Acknowledging the good that is already in your life is the foundation for all abundance. The fact is, whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you are withholding from the world. And this kind of led into what I think was one of the most profound things from this chapter. But does that make sense to you all? I mean, I would read that every day if you struggle with lack. What he's saying is, it's because you're focusing on lack, because something inside of you believes that, feels that. Focus on abundance. There's abundance everywhere. I'm looking outside. I'm in my sunroom. Just look at grass. Like, there is so much grass. So many blades of grass. The abundance of grass is crazy. This weekend, I was walking down by the river, and there were all these seagulls. And I just looked out, and I was like, everywhere is a seagull. And they were flying, and then I looked down at the ocean, or in the river, and they were sitting, bobbing in the ocean. I mean, hundreds and hundreds. And I was like, what an abundance of birds. And then I was like, how do they eat? And then I was like, there's an abundance of fish right underneath them. Like, there is abundance everywhere. Like, everywhere. Start focusing on that. He says, once you focus on that, then the abundance that's within you always starts to resonate with it as well. And you start to get more and more and more of it. And he says, this is a very interesting point. Whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you are the one withholding from the world. Okay? So, in every situation, right? If you're feeling like, well, I'm not getting love, I'm not getting recognition, I'm not getting whatever, fill in the blank, then in every situation, ask, how can I give love here? How can I give recognition here? How can I give service here? In every situation, ask always, what can I give here? How can I be of service here? You know, my first mentors, the first time I met the one gentleman, I sat down, we had coffee together, we were talking, whatever, networking, and he said to me, how can I help you? At the end of it, he said, okay, what's the one thing I can do to help you? And to this day, every time I talk to this human being, the way the conversation ends is, Danielle, what is one thing I can do to help you? Constantly it's of service. And abundance constantly flows into this man's world. Because that's what's there. It's how can I serve? How can I be of service? How can I give the thing that I need? Right? And it will come to you. It's a universal law. This is what's wild. Okay? Abundance comes to those that already have it. All right? Because when you feel abundance and you exude abundance, that's what comes in. When you see lack and you observe lack and you talk about lack, you're going to get more lack. But you already have abundance. Like, you are the divine. Hello. Like, everything is here. And once you start seeing that and feeling that and acting from that space in every moment, then it will start to feed back to you. And just wait and watch it happen, right? He says, whatever you think the world is withholding from you, you already have it. But unless you allow it to flow out, you won't even know that you have it. Right? This kind of like, are there questions on this? Because it kind of makes your head spin a little bit like, wait, what? But it's the truth. Like, it is the truth. The source of all abundance is not outside of you. It is a part of who you are. It's the divine. That's you. It's everything. I mean, like, so many times this chapter just made me speechless. It's like, it's amazing. The acknowledgement of that abundance that is all around you awakens the dormant abundance within you. So go out into nature. See the abundance everywhere. It will start to awaken it inside of you, and you realize, I am surrounded by it, and I am it, right? It's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So the last part is this knowing yourself and knowing about yourself. Really, he tried to call out like a pitfall that a lot of people fall into, which is, don't confuse knowing about yourself with knowing yourself, okay? He says some of us have a fear of knowing ourselves. We feel like, oh, if I get into myself, like, I'm going to find some stuff I don't like, and I don't even want to go there. And then other people are like, I want to know everything. And they go and they do talk therapy, and they get a novel written about them, and they understand all the nuances of what happened in their childhood that's made them this way, and blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is, that's knowing about yourself. All right? It's not knowing your true self. You could go to psychotherapy for years and never know your true self. You know about you, but you won't know you, okay? You won't get to the truth, the depth of who you are, because it can't be known, all right? It's like if I had a container, I don't have one, okay, this bottle, okay? It's like knowing about yourself is knowing all the things that are inside of the container, all right? But the truth is you're the container. And so you could study the contents of it all day long, night and day, and you really know what's in there, but you would know nothing about being the container. Does that make sense? So you can study the mind all you want. You can get to know what's in there. But does it really get you to know you? No. It's the contents, not the container. Does that make sense? I remember after my car accident, I was so depressed. And because my whole life, what did I identify with? I was the A student. I was the teacher. I was the snowboarder. I was a good friend. I was, working in an underprivileged area. I was all of these good things, right? Contents. Then my car accident happened. I all of a sudden couldn't snowboard, couldn't work. I couldn't make money. I couldn't hang out with friends. I couldn't do any of the things that used to be me. And so I felt empty. I was like, well, who am I? And I started asking this very question. Who am I? When all of these things inside the container are gone, who are you actually? And that's when I realized, before I didn't know about all this stuff, but I realized I'm the container. I'm the one that's here that got to experience all those things, and I'm still here. I get to experience what's next, and I want to stay here, right? And you get to know your true self. You get to know your true self. I'm glad you landed here too. Polly's saying, I had no idea how I just landed on this accidentally, but I was asking the universe for it. Such gratitude to you and lots of love. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. This, I knew this particular one needed to reach a lot of people. So share this on your pages, please. People need to hear this conversation. So I did it again. We're out of time, but we'll wrap up. Give me 2 more minutes. On page 193, he was pointing to this. All the contents are not you, all right? And he talks about chaos and a higher order. He talks about, when all you know is contents, you start to think, well, some things are good and some things are bad. And I like having this in my container and I don't like having that. And the truth is, you're having a debate about the wrong things, all right? That's the ego debating about the stuff that's inside of here. I like this, I don't like this. It doesn't freaking matter what's in here. You're the container. Just be with whatever's in there. It's going to move out eventually, right? It's all transient, okay? The truth is, you're the place, right? And he talks about how if you were to go out into the forest, and I love this analogy because I walk in the forest every morning here, and you look around, like you see disorder. I go into the forest and I see like there's pine needles everywhere and there's random trees all over the place, and some of them are growing into each other, and like there's just all this stuff going on. And your mind sees disorder, right? Because if we were to go to a park, like my boyfriend likes walking at the park, and I don't like it because I'm like, this is so like structured. It's like planned, but the mind likes it. Oh, this is where the grass ends, and this is where the playground is, and this is where you play pickleball, and blah, blah, blah. And we feel good because it's orderly. It makes sense to the ego, it makes sense to the mind. But the truth is, there is a higher order happening in nature. There's a divine order. And if you were to sit and just witness nature and watch, you see the divine order play out. How when one thing dies, it becomes food for the next. And when that dies, it goes into the earth and it becomes nutrients for the trees that then the babies of that same animal are now living in, right? Like there is a divine order to all of it. And you start to see that you are part of that divine order. And you start to see how you're interacting with it, consciously or unconsciously. All right. So I'm going to just end with this one, the last part. So I highlighted it because I just loved it. He said, you cannot understand it through thought, but you can sense it when you let go of thought. You become still and alert and don't try to understand or explain. Only then can you be aware of the sacredness of the forest. As soon as you sense that hidden harmony, that sacredness, you realize that you are not separate from it. And when you realize that, you become a conscious participant in it. And in this way, nature can help you become realigned with the wholeness of life, because it realigns you with the divine, which is you. And when you're in nature, who feels it? Like put a 3 in the chat if you feel it. When you go out into nature, you're there long enough, like something happens in your being. There's a shift. What is that? That is you aligning to the frequency of the truth of who you are with nature, with the divine. You're getting realigned to it. And the ego mind is quieting down, and all of a sudden you're realigning to the truth of who you are. For those of you that are in my mastery community, this is the chitta that we were talking about. It gets realigned. The chitta quiets down and you get realigned with who you are. So I'm glad that many of you are putting 3s in the chat. You see this, you felt it. It's fabulous. So you should probably listen to this again and again and again as a reminder, right? It's such a good chapter. I did not look forward. Let me just see. Are we going to try and finish this chapter? No, we need to probably cut it. Yeah, so we'll do 10 pages again. That seems to be what I can handle. So we'll probably end at the paradox of time. I'll put it in the Telegram chat where we're going to end. I'll just make sure that divvies up the rest of the chapter well enough. Somewhere around there. Okay, so I'll put it in the Telegram chat. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you. I always post this up onto YouTube as well. So if you wanted to go back to the rest of these, you can on the playlist on my YouTube channel. It's Inner Mastery Podcast. And share this on your pages, guys. Get the word out about this. This is how all of us can live in happiness, in harmony. And I would like all of humanity to be able to access that. So let's spread the word. Appreciate you all and have a beautiful week. And go give what you think you're missing, right? That's the one thing. Go give what you think you are missing out on.